Yo, what is good, Vibers? In this video, we're going to do an in-depth analysis of everything that has changed in the Season 0 Arc 1 patch notes that just hit yesterday on January 8th. My goal for this video is to help you understand not only everything that changed, but also what all of that means. So this is the beginning of the very first season of SUPERVIVE, and as far as I understand it right now, the format's going to basically look like this. Every season is going to last 3 months. Every arc is going to last 1 month. And essentially, it sounds like every arc is going to be every hunter release. And so in the patch that happened mid-December, they mentioned they were going to be targeting a hunter every single month. And the Season 0 is running exactly 3 months, like 91 days. And so each of these arcs should last about 30 days and should come with the introduction of a new hunter. And so in Arc 1 of Season 0, our new hunter is Beebo. This little guy, he's super cool, actually. It has like a really unique kit with some like really interesting like RNG elements going on. And I did a little showcase showing his abilities yesterday, if you want to check that out and just get a quick idea of kind of what his kit is like. I am going to be doing a more in-depth beginner's guide once I get a chance to play him a lot more and really figure him out. But along with Beebo, we also have a warped equipment system, very first battle pass, rank changes, and a bunch of other stuff going on. So shout out to DinDin again for making this really nice like website application to translate the Steam notes over. So here's like the regular Steam page, and here is the page that DinDin has put together. So if you want clean viewing for your SUPERVIVE news and patch notes, I will link this in the description. But we're going to go through all this together right now and just talk through everything that's changed and show you exactly what that is. So some general stuff at the top here, they're saying they did see new players sticking around more with the Resurgence changes over the holidays, more hours played by more new players, which is cool. And they're also mentioning that they know everyone's not going to love all the different changes they make. And this is like basically Theorycraft's thing, like since the very beginning of me starting playtesting, like whatever, like almost 3 years ago. They're constantly doing big changes like this to try to make the game better, and some of them stick, some of them don't. Usually it ends up being some, you know, kind of like modified version of the original idea if it's a good idea. And so I'm expecting to see Resurgence changes, and that's basically what they're saying here, is that everything that's live now with this patch was basically like kind of baked and ready before everyone went on break in like the middle of December. And so all the feedback that's happened over the last month, they like haven't had any like working time to implement that. And so if you're a player, especially like a newer player, and you've been leaving a lot of feedback in the Discord or stuff like that, just know that that stuff's getting heard. And the reason it wasn't addressed in this patch is this patch was basically like kind of already done. And now that we're into the new year, it's going to be a little more of like a live process where they're going to be looking at all that feedback from the last month. They're going to be using it to continue to tune the game going forward. They also threw together this patch highlights video. It's actually pretty good. Okay, guys, coming down to Beebo, I'm just gonna skip this part because I literally made a video like showing all this stuff yesterday. So if you want to know about Beebo and know his abilities and what they do, just like at a basic level, just check out the video I posted yesterday, and I will also link that in the description. So we're just going to go right down into system changes then, and the big thing here is this global shop edition, and this is a very interesting kind of brand new sort of mechanic they're adding. And a big point of feedback they've heard is that gold feels inconsistently valuable, meaning it's like it feels like it's valuable sometimes, other times it feels like it's completely useless. And so they're trying to sort of like figure out a way to solve that a little bit, and they want farming gold to be like a viable strategy, you know, that can sort of play out better than it does at the moment, based on the sort of RNG of what's in the shops, where the shops are at, what they each have, that kind of stuff, right? So the sort of solution they're looking at is implementing a global shop. And if you've been playing SUPERVIVE for a while, this is going to feel very foreign, where literally now any time in the game, you can shop anywhere. So the default keybind is going to be V, but basically anywhere you're at, you can open the global shop and make a purchase. And it doesn't look like it's active or that I can pull it up in Practice Tool, which kind of makes sense. But basically when you buy something, it's going to drop it in a drop pod. And this is going to be a 20-second delay to basically get your items, and they're going to drop in one of those crates that you actually have to loot and pick up. And so if your allies purchase anything while your pod's on the way, it's going to get added to that pod like an Amazon Prime box, right? So in this shop, there's going to be a smaller set of core items you're always going to be able to buy. So this is Hypervive green and blue armor, a new armor repair kit that does 3 bars of armor, and also a mobile respawn beacon that's always going to be there, which is another very interesting change. And so every match, there's also going to be 12 powers that are rolled and offered in limited quantities in this global shop. So these are like basically available to every player on the map, has access to these right away. It's just a matter of who can get the gold and like purchase them first, and then they're gone out of the shop, right? So every match, 12 random powers, 8 are going to be common, uncommon, 3 are going to be rare, and 1's going to be exotic. These are all going to be available to be purchased in the global shop. And if you want any of them, it's basically a race against all the other players on the map to acquire that amount of gold and make that purchase. And if we look down here, normal shops no longer sell equipment or raw beans. So a couple things were removed for normal shops. However, each region's shop now has different default powers that you can reliably find. So I really like this actually. It's going to create sort of like zones on the map where you can reliably get certain powers at certain shops. So if you're playing a certain hunter and you know you want a certain power, perhaps dropping around the area where that shop is to get that power reliably during that match is like a really cool thing. And I really like this because there wasn't really a way to reliably find specific powers before. There were some little things you could try to do, but in general, it was like pretty RNG. Now, basically, we're going to have RNG of the 12 powers available in the shop, but there are going to be regional powers that you're going to be able to acquire more reliably. And I think that's really cool. And I think this is going to open up. I think this is like a really cool change, and I'm really excited to see how this ends up like playing out. All right. And then coming down to the UAV sound pulses, this is basically saying like the main thing they were trying to do here is teach the idea of sound scouting to like newer players. And they're saying it was like a little heavy-handed at first, where it was maybe a bit too aggressive. The amount of, this is referring to the visual pulses that show on the minimap and map that are generated from sound that were added in the last big patch with Resurgence. And a lot of the feedback has been, this is like, it's way too easy now to see where players are out. Even the tiniest of sounds will show their position from pretty far away. And so basically they're trying to make it like a bit more realistic or like reasonable, where it's somewhere in the middle of where it was and it not being there, where basically the max range for pulses has been reduced by 20%. So if you consider the area of a circle, it's a 36% kind of like reduction there. And then pulses within that range no longer show at the lower end of attenuation. So meaning like quiet sounds, especially on the max end of the range, are like not going to show at all. And so this should be like a much more like realistic visual sound scouting than, kind of like the maybe like overtuned version that it's been sitting at. Next, coming down to map objectives, legendaries, and exotics. And there's a lot of kind of stuff here. But the gist is, with these changes, they're trying to inject more variability into the early game strategy of SUPERVIVE, while also reducing the amount of exotics floating around in the end game and adding more clarity / knowability when it comes to the high-end rarities. So the biggest thing, especially for like high elo play, is there's a literal halving of the total amount of exotics that are going to be available per game. So there was a max of 8 before. It's going to be halved down to 4. And the only exception to that is if it's modified by a Stormshift. So each game, these 4 exotics are going to be every single time. 2 are going to be in the red chests, which you get from getting the red PvP keys from fighting other players. When you kill other players, they have a chance to drop a red key. If you get a red key, you can follow it to an evil chest, red chest. So there is going to be 2 exotics in evil chests. There's going to be an exotic dropped by a night boss, the very first night. And there's going to be 1 exotic as part of the 12 powers that are randomly in the global shop every game. as well. So basically, we have 4 every game. We're going to know exactly where they're at. There's going to be 2 in the red chests. There's going to be 1 from a boss the first night, and there's going to be 1 available right away in the global shop that everyone's basically like rushing gold for to try to like grab first out of there. And they basically like want to add some clarity on how you can pursue exotics or legendary gear. And so I'll go through this real quick because I think it's like, it's worth knowing, but maybe, if you're unclear on this, like copy paste, save this list somewhere so you can kind of like remember all this. But it's not too complicated once you sort of like, especially once you play a few times knowing this. So first, there's the 2 evil chests or red chests that we were just talking about with these, where if you kill enemy players, they have a chance to drop a red key, a PvP key. If you take that, follow it to a red chest, there will be 2 exotics in there. And this is basically saying if those exotics have already been claimed, that key is now going to actually point to the player, the closest players that have those 2 exotics. So later in the game, you can actually use red key to find enemy teams with these exotics. And then on the very first night, there's going to be the night bosses. There's going to be 2 of them. One's going to spawn with an exotic and the other one's going to spawn with a piece of legendary equipment. So if we come down here, we can see this is like legendary equipment classification. This is like exotic classification, if you're kind of confused on like what's what. But you can think of exotics as basically like the legendary powers, and then everything else is just, legendary. So we have the 2 red chests, we have the 2 night bosses, we also have abyssal vaults, which hold 2 out of 3 of the abyss powers now. And so if you see that special like purple designated vault, that means it's going to contain an abyssal scale or an abyssal eye. Can no longer hold the fang, which is now considered an exotic. But basically, these are the items where if your team has 2 of them, you get a passive team buff, and if you have 3, you get another passive team buff. The train is now always going to hold a legendary item at the start of the game, so train potentially having more viability for consistent early drops. Every match at the start of day 3 now, there's going to be a legendary airdrop that's coming in somewhere on the map with a legendary item in it, so keep your eye out. Right as night 2 is shifting into day 3 for a legendary item dropping somewhere randomly. And then finally, we have hot zones, and these are basically the spots on the map you can see when dropping that show where the kind of legendary armors are at. And so the split on this has been changed around a few times. It looks like right now these can either be split 2 ways or all be in one spot. So you're either going to see 2 armors in 2 different places, or you're going to see 4 legendary armors in the same exact zone. And these are basically like hot drop zones where that's like an easy spot to go get early value and find fights. And then we looked at these are basically the, kind of like legendary items. And then these are basically the legendary powers, also known as exotic. And so make sure you kind of understand like what all these are and what they do. And then coming down to Resurgence, basically there's no Resurgence changes for now. And basically what they're saying is they're seeing the revival rules are leading to new and solo players being able to survive longer, participate in combat, and therefore experience more of the SUPERVIVE session, get more of a taste of that, the magic of combat that we all know and love as experienced players in SUPERVIVE. And their data is basically showing that new players are sticking around longer with these changes, which is obviously a good thing. They're also seeing positive results on their surveys from it, but they also are seeing all the feedback in the Discord from more experienced players against it. And so they're aware that it's not perfect and that it's not, the final solution, but basically they didn't have, kind of the time during the winter break to change anything. And so they're going to be looking at all the feedback from winter break combined with new, metrics coming out after this patch to sort of figure out what the future path is going to be for Resurgence. I'm expecting them basically to like dial it in a bit. Like it's going to be still there probably, but in a lesser context than it is now. Sort of like the subtle changes they did with the sound pulses, right? And then coming down to stealth, they've been talking about stealth changes for a while now. So these are basically like additions onto the stealth changes that happened last patch. That were basically like nerfing it, like one of the things like tripling the mana cost on mana cloak and things like that. But basically what this is doing is any form of dash is now turning off stealth. So before you could dash in stealth, now you are basically no longer going to be able to dash while invisible. And so like Bushwhacker or Ethereal Smoke, like if it's just a one-off stealth effect, is going to be removed when you dash. Active stealth effects like Mana Cloak are going to be toggled off, so you're going to have to like press it again to turn it back on. And then always on invis effects like Scuba, Delicate, and Night Soul are going to be suppressed for 4 seconds. So like if you're Kingpin with Night Soul and you dash, you're basically going to be visible for 4 seconds until you can get out of combat, and then you'll like re-stealth, right? So basically more changes to help kind of the play against stealth. And so be curious to see how these end up like feeling and playing out. I expect this to help a lot because it's pretty obnoxious to just be like dash slammed from a invis delicate disguise Kingpin. Now you're actually going to see him right when he dashes. So there's at least some, you know, small measure of time to where you can like try to counterplay, which I think is good. All right, now on to Stormshifts. We have 2 new Stormshifts hitting the breach. With this season, we have Unstable Portals, and this is like on theme with kind of Beebo's Warp Tour. 2-way portals will randomly spawn at the edges of the playable space for a limited amount of time. So there's basically going to be a bunch of like randomly generated like 2-way teleporters on the edge of the map. And I haven't played with this one yet. It sounds crazy. It's probably going to be pretty cool. And then the second one is berry season, and this is going to make it so the frequency of berries spawned in bushes is dramatically increased, and the amount that the berries heal and restore mana is also substantially increased. So berry season is basically like well, exactly what it says. It's berry season. And then coming down to map changes, actually some really cool stuff here with the sort of expansions that they've made. So there's going to be these mini warp anomalies that you're going to be able to find around the map that are part of Beebo's interdimensional tour. And along with this, Academy is now going to have a giant warp anomaly that's basically a giant always on anywhere but here. So if you click it, it's going to teleport you anywhere on the map within the circle randomly. And it's like basically always going to be on and always going to be there. So Academy now has like a really unique, interesting mechanic to play around. And they've also added a new swamp, like a whole new kind of chunk of land to the right of Academy, which used to just be Abyss. And so there's going to be new combat space over there. But what this is really going to do is make it so Academy, since it's not directly on the edge of the map, it's going to be in play from session to session, like more often across more games, because there's kind of more chance of the final circle closing in around that area if it's like a little further in from the edge, right? And along those same lines of thought, they basically took like kind of the big, maybe empty feeling Scavenger Bay, and they've expanded it into 3 discrete, more grokkable combat spaces. So we should see, kind of more distinct action and like objectives happening down at Scavenger Bay than we saw before. Scavenger Bay was the place where if you looted the crates, you had a chance to find upgraded equipment. So we'll have to see if that still exists in one of these 3 discrete zones, or if it's applicable across all 3 still, or what kind of the main changes there. All right, now coming down to hunter changes, starting off with our buddy Brall. So it says, we hear you that Brawl's windows of vulnerability and windows of opportunity are too fuzzy. So sort of like unclear potentially for people playing against him, and maybe even for players like on Brall themselves, right? So here are some changes to meaningfully increase those windows on his mobility, calling out the re-addition of the knockback. So basically, because of performance reasons, they removed the knockback on his LMB along with Firefox's RMB momentum cancel. And that was like, it was a big nerf for Firefox, but it was actually a buff for Brall because it made it easier for him to stay on top of you because his sword no longer knocked you back. And so it was like a, sort of like a subtle big Brall buff that was meant to be like a performance related change. And it says that right here. One thing it did was actually create space when Brall was spamming LNBs on you, which we think helps create space against him. So they're adding that knockback back in so that he does knock you back, so you can then try to like keep space against him without him just being constantly on top of you. So along with that change, we also got like a significant amount of sort of like numbers changes that we can see here. So on our passive Blazing Spirit, which is what gives us the empowerment, which is what gives us the double LMB attack speed. So if we look at Brall here, when we have our rage meter max, this LMB is going to go twice as fast, and we're also going to get a bunch of extra cooldown reduction on our other abilities. And a big strategy, especially for like good brawls where they're constantly like chunking at creeps to keep their empowered up, right? Like the whole time, like anywhere they're out on the map, they're looking to like blast creeps to get this empowered up. The empowered on creeps is like way lower now. See my empowered bar? It's like not even close to where it was. And even if I'm doing the LMBs to try to get like a lot, like it's just a lot harder to build it up on creeps than it was before. Like way longer, right? So you get a lot from the stagger. See how I got like half the bar from the stagger? So now if you're wailing on creeps with Brawl, the best way to get the empowerment is from a stagger, and you can actually shift the stagger, get an instant reset on all your shifts, right? So if you're looking to play around empowered with Brawl still off of creeps, just you want to wait for that, wait for the purple circle, and you want to shift through it, and that's going to give you not only half of an empowered bar, but also a full shift reset. Every hunter has an ability where if you hit this circle with it, it fully resets. See how I hit it with my shift and it fully resets all my shifts? So that's basically the new creep play on Brawl. Not as good as it was, but you just have to be, but still good. And you just have to be a bit more intentional, kind of like about how you play around it, right? All right, now looking at our LMB, the Molten Greatsword, just the actual like auto attack swing here, not any of the actual, you know, like big R&B abilities. And so on that, the damage has been reduced by 10% straight up. The hitbox width has been pulled in by 30%, and the knockback has been re-added like we were talking about up here. And so this is basically a nerf because it was a buff taking it away because it lets you just stay on top of people. And then this is like big kind of nerf to our LMB. 10% damage reduction, 30% less hitbox, knockback added back in. And we can see visually it doesn't look like that different, but we can basically expect the hitbox to be a little more in line with the visual now. Whereas before, the hitbox was maybe like, you know, maybe I was hitting strike here. Now it's going to be, you know, a little more. See how I have to get even like, now it's even like tighter than the visual. So see how like, I guess it's like going up, it looks a little worse. See how when I'm going up, it looks like it's on her, but if I'm on the side. Anyways, just know that the range in your LMB is going to be down, it's going to be knocking back, and it's going to be doing a little bit less damage. And then looking at our Q Face Steel Chain, this was one that after you threw it, the cooldown would begin like here before you reactivated it. This change is basically making it so the cooldown is going to begin on the second activation or on the chain break. See how it broke and now it started, rather than being like up again by the time it's off. So it's going to make it so brawls can't like continuously grapple, where you could like, you know, throw a grapple out and be like waiting, and then you could like pull, and then your other grapple would be like almost back up again because you waited before you pulled. Now you can't really do that. But then along with that change to kind of like compensate a little bit, they've reduced the cooldown of the chain by 1.5 seconds. So slightly shorter cooldown, but you're not going to be able to like buffer the cooldown with the animation. And then this is funny. Level 3 ability upgrade now gives less cooldown reduction. This is hilarious because if you look at our level 3 here, oh, this tooltip didn't even show the cooldown reduction before. It just said dodge shots to build empowerment. So at least they added the CDR into the tooltip now. It used to be secret CDR you got from the level 3 flame step, and it was 3.5 seconds. Now it's down to 2 seconds. So still a very strong upgrade for Brawl, especially considering the fact that it's going to be harder to stay empowered with this reduction from creeps. You know, potentially using the flame step to get more empowered is going to be a, you know, even more viable option now, along with just getting that dash cooldown reduction, which is very important. All right, now coming to our boy Huddy. Huddy got a little love this patch. Exciting for some people, not exciting for others. It's not crazy. So basically what they're doing is they didn't touch his damage or his gun or anything like that. It's just a bunch of changes to barbed wire. And so it says, we significantly nerfed Hudson in previous patch, have been thinking of ways to sharpen his other strengths in the meantime. And in that previous patch, they're basically saying they want Hudson to be a controller. They don't want him to be able to double left shift, float dash his turret, you know, across the map into a bunch of people and, you know, continually like press and be super aggressive with this super long range machine gun. They want him to be able to hold space. They want him to be able to post up and like hold, you know, a certain area like really well. And so part of the way they're trying to do that is with this like totally reworked barbed wire. And we can see if I throw one now, it's a bit different. It's not only visually different, but it's wider. It has like a different sort of trajectory. I can throw it further, like all these different things. So basically, it's now a destructible with pass-through damage. The health increases with ability level. The width is increased by 100. The cast range is increased, and it's now going to show a warning while lobbed, like other, sort of skill shots like that. Increased placement lobbing duration when cast at max range, so 2 times longer than the old speed, and increase the total lifetime from 20 seconds at levels 1 and 2 up to 30 seconds at level 3. So we can see the barbed wire that I threw out earlier just disappeared right there. We have it at level 3 from when I was messing with Beebo stuff, but look at the range on this thing. And it has 3 charges. When we go to, we can see the level 3 upgrade here. It's going to get more HP, more duration, and less cooldown reduction, right? And so basically, you should be able to use barbed wire more reliably to create these like areas of zone control and try to play Hudson more like a controller, where you can almost have like some pseudo, like Fortress Soul action going on, and potentially might make him a better look for like endgame type performance. So we'll have to see if this is enough to bring Hudson back into the fold. So that's actually it with our hunter changes, just those 2. Coming down to warped equipment, and this one actually doesn't show up in practice tool, but a common point of feedback we hear from players is they often choose the same evolves over and over for equipment, and we'd like to add some spice to the system and reward players for thinking on their feet. So basically now what's going to happen is once you upgrade your item like from green to blue, you know how there's the 3 options to evolve it? Now you're going to have basically an RNG 4th option, and it's going to be potentially some additional, like some mix of stats of other evolutions and potentially some additional stats. So warped evolutions keep the same base stats of the item, but can roll random passive from any other items in the game, and sometimes come with additional benefits. So there's a 75% chance your warped evolution has a passive from any other blue equipment. So like imagine I get like a turbo booster with like this mind blade passive effect, right? Instead of turbo booster, like something like that. And then there's a 20% chance that your warped evolution comes with extra stats pulled from the evolution it's got as passive of. So if I get if I get lucky in that scenario, 1 out of every 5 times, I can get a turbo booster not only with the Mind Blade passive, but also maybe with the some percentage of the Mind Blade mana regen. So now I have a turbo booster with the ability, power, move speed, but the Mind Blade passive and mana regen, right? But that's only going to happen like 1 out of 5 games. That's basically like an RNG element. And then there's an even more RNG element, 1 out of every 20 games, natural 20 here. Your warped evolution has a unique legendary passive. Currently, there are 3 legendary passives available: Soul Stealer, Glider, and Trailblazer. And I don't know exactly what these are. I would imagine Soul Stealer's that stacking AP based on kills. Not sure what these 2 are. So this is basically your natural 20 roll on evolution to get a legendary passive. You also have a 1 in 5 chance to be able to fully swap the passive with extra stats. You have a 75% chance to be able to fully swap the passive, and you have a 1 in 5 chance to bring some extra stats from that swap passive. So a pretty cool, interesting look here on warped equipment. I'd be curious to hear, kind of what your guys' feedback is on that system once you've had some time to really, test stuff out and see how it feels. And then coming down to power changes, which are basically new powers for the most part. So we have Dimensional Tunnel, we have Deployable Fan, we have Instant Fortress, and then we have a couple changes. On Power Shuffler, we can no longer reroll to Replicator. So when you're shuffling, there's no longer an RNG chance to get it to Replicator. Replicator being like objectively one of the most powerful kind of exotics in the game, with sort of the value you can duplicate with it. And so that's basically going to be removed from the RNG of Power Shuffler. I think what a lot of people were doing is literally just power shuffling into Replicator and then, blowing up the Replicator, replicating a bunch of exotics. So Power Shuffler is going to basically not be used to like target farm Replicator anymore. I think they're kind of trying to get it to like actually be used as a power itself, or like an exotic itself. And then coming down to Abyss Specialist, another one that kind of had some like pretty aggressive abuse cases for certain champions, like Jewel. It's a really good example. Jhin is another one that could really utilize Abyss Specialist well. Now it's going to have an internal cooldown of 30 seconds, so you're not going to be able to do that constant. Like if you were a Jewel with Abyss Specialist, you could literally, you know, come out here, dash back, and it would be instantly reset before. Like literally anytime you were out over Abyss, you got a free dash, and it was instantly back up when you were on the ground. And it would basically make it so as long as you were out over the air, your dash would always be back up. So if I did, if I did this, dashed, and then I was back out in the air and dashed again, like I could do this essentially infinitely because everyone would be proccing Abyss Specialist. We can see I can no longer do that because this Abyss Specialist has this internal cooldown, which it did not have before. Okay, so the Dimensional Tunnel is actually called Two-Way Tunnel in game, and it's like a two-way teleport where you press it, and it gives you this big zoomed out view. And then if you press it, it's going to give you this little zone. And the difference between it and two-way teleport is it's like always active the whole time. And it gives you this sort of like upward momentum as well. So anyone with any sort of like aerial stuff could take advantage of this, as well as, you know, kind of just using it to like bait and outplay, almost like the same way you would play around a portal like this, where it's kind of up all the time and you can actually like shoot stuff through it. Well, yeah, there we go. I have Beebo's. Oh, I guess Beebo's visual, like they. Okay, it is going through. So it's like something weird's happening with the visual there. But yeah, basically the same way you would play around these portals. That's how you would want to think about this two-way tunnel. It's just on the ground, and it's going to, like, sort of shoot you up. But something you can do is, like, the same way you can shoot stuff through here. Like, I'm pretty sure you could throw, like, I could throw my bomb in here. Yeah, see, and it's going to pop up at the other side, like that kind of stuff. We also have Deployable Fan. This is basically, like, a replicate of the fans that are, like, down in, like, Scavenger Bay area, where it's going to have this charge, and it's going to do this super momentum kind of blast off with it. And so, you know, going to be a lot of interesting things you can do with this, because when you're inevitably fighting on that part of the map, the fans come into play in like really interesting ways. And so now we're going to be able to like make little fan areas on our own. And we can see it has 2 charges with a 60-second cooldown. So a little bit like Chonker Cannon-esque, where we can set it up. And I'm assuming, yeah, that they have 750 health and they last 60 seconds. So by the time these end, I'll be able to place another one basically. And it looks like the thing is kind of on command, where see how they're not doing it, but as soon as I kind of walk up in front, it starts to charge it. So it's not like a random pulse, it's literally like on command wind pulse. And this would be really good for like edge guarding too, if you're trying to keep an enemy team out. If you imagine lining a couple of these up like on a ledge someone's trying to push, right? Like imagine we had 2 like right here. Or like even like a teammate had it and you created like a gauntlet of these. Like it'd be really hard for an enemy team to push this ledge unless they can like get over the top of that fan wall, right? And then lastly we have Instant Fort, which is a blue power, and it looks a little like a tree prison cast here, and it's that's sick, bro. Dude, that's really cool. So it's like literally like a tree prison, but it's like a platform with walls. So you get high ground with it, and you get these like defensible walls that you can shoot through yourself, but can't be shot through by enemies. I just got DC'd. I just got timed out there, but it's perfect because we're going into rank changes. So with this, we had a full rank set. We can see everyone's ranks fully reset yesterday. So what they're saying is they saw folks climbing faster than anticipated in terms of rank. And so they're implementing a few changes to clamp down on inflation while keeping the rank climb focused on the right actions. And then it also mentions that they're adding a slight solo player bonus to try to help. Basically, they're calling it a light solution to complement or to sort of help solo players be on a slightly more equal playing field against pre-mades and squads running 4 stacks. And this is basically a continuation of the rank changes that happened last patch in the middle of October, where they basically removed the points for kills. And so you actually have to fully eliminate a squad now to get, or the way it's been, you have to fully eliminate a squad to get those ranked points for the kills. If you don't eliminate the squad and they get rezzed, you actually don't get any ranked points for kills. And so My biggest feedback with this when they implemented these changes is it just felt bad, especially as a solo queue player. You could no longer sort of carry yourself, and it almost gave more advantage to pre-mades. But essentially, what they're trying to do, this focus on the right actions. They really want like players and teams to be focused more on the sort of BR strategy than like just farming kills. And so they're basically, I don't necessarily like fully agree or like this, but this is basically their intent is they want the action to be more focused around squad eliminations and final team placement. And so we see those like sort of directly reflected in all these changes we're about to look at. And that's basically kind of called out again here. It says, finally, for the shift on placement versus elimination points distribution, today we think there's not enough emphasis on mid to late game strategy and want that to have a larger impact on your ranked progression. So we're shifting the values to reflect this philosophy. And they call out kind of the downside of this is that if it goes too far, then ratting becomes a prevalent way to climb, but it says they'll be keeping an eye on this as they don't seem to be seeing too much of that at the moment. But basically, that changes right here where it says we rebalance the distribution of rank points between team eliminations and placement to weigh more towards placement. Think where previously it was 50-50. Now it's actually going to be weighted 60-40 in favor of placement. So placement's going to have actually a little more bearing now than squad elimination. So like basically strategy and like macro type stuff is actually going to be more important now than like farming kills. And the kills are only going to realize their value if your squad successfully gets that wipe. However, they did implement a small change to alleviate this a bit, and I think this hopefully will help. But basically, it says below master rank, you will get extra ranked point bonus if your team gets a lot of kills but no team eliminations that game. So on your climb to master, before you get to those high, like, you know, really high ranks, basically you are going to be able to carry yourself at least a little bit off of kills. We'll have to see exactly how big this ranked bonus is and how it ends up playing out. But at least they added something in there to where you get some amount of RP from kills without eliminations, where for the last month it's been basically 0. And so if you're having a really good solo queue game where you maybe get 20 kills, but your team's not doing that good, and you know you maybe don't get crazy placement or don't get a bunch of actual squad elims, hopefully this bonus is enough to make you, you know, sort of like feel a bit more like that wasn't a total waste of time because you actually got some amount of value out of, like, you know, having a bunch of cool plays, getting a bunch of kills rather than the 0 that it's been. I hope that makes sense. And the other thing that's like added here to kind of help like the solo player advantage, which is how I normally play, just solo queuing squads. Solo players now gain an extra +5 ranked points regardless of placement. So regardless of what rank you're queuing in at, what your ante is, how that game turns out, what rank you get at the end of that, it doesn't matter. Every time you solo queue, you should get +5 rank points right off the bat. And I think that's a cool, you know, they're calling it a light solution, but at least it's something to, you know, differentiate the solo queue player queuing into squads versus like the 4 stacks queuing into squads, right? And then it looks like to alleviate this like climbing faster, they're literally like doubling the amount of ranked points required to climb between tiers. So it's going to be 100 to crest tiers instead of 200. And then they're adding this ranked point anti-cost increase will increase by 1 point for every 200 points you have at Grandmaster Plus. So at the very top ranks, once you're kind of above these brackets, it's basically going to make it so every 200 points you are above that into like Legend, it's going to cost an extra point to queue. And so like, let's say you're 1,000 points into Grandmaster, it's going to cost you 5 extra anti-points at the beginning of a match to queue. And this is sort of an infinitely scaling thing that I think is going to be good in the end, because it's going to make it so like players at the highest rank are going to hopefully, like at the highest end, this makes it so time isn't so much of a factor at the highest rank. Because right now it's literally, you obviously have to be really good, but whoever is really good and can play the most is going to be rank 1. And hopefully this makes it so playing the most isn't going to be the end all be all, because at a certain point, when you're a certain chunk of points above Grandmaster, it's going to be like, 50 points to queue into a game. So you literally have to be, like getting second or winning like most of those to even stay equal or like continue to climb. And that should hopefully, like, I'm hoping this will kind of alleviate that like time requirement. Obviously it's going to take time to get here, but once players are here, hopefully this will basically make it so skill is a little more determinant in who's rank 1 rather than amount of time played, right? So I'm hopeful about this change. I think that's like actually a pretty good look. And this is basically reminding what I mentioned of last patch. Last patch, we changed rank points from kills to team elimination so that placements matter more than kill farming for climbing. So that was like all the stuff we talked about at the beginning. And that's also tied to this rebalancing of the kind of distribution where placement's actually going to be worth a little more now than it was before, even more than the actual squad eliminations. And they've also added this final bit where ranked matchmaking will attempt to match you based on your rank in addition to your MMR, and this means you'll see less rank disparity in your matches. So this should help like bronze players not get queued in with legends, just purely based on MMR without rank being considered. And then getting to the juicy stuff, they actually added some ranked rewards. So they're going to be offering ranked rewards throughout the season, and as well as additional methods for tracking. But basically, as you progress through the ranks, you'll unlock avatars that have borders to reflect your highest earned ranked. You'll be able to equip and use any rank you want via the avatar selector. And then at the end of Season 0, they're going to be granting a custom glider. So this is the 3 months, end of Season 0, like April. They're going to be granting a custom glider based on your highest ranked achieved. So that's really cool. You're going to get like a glider with your like rank icon on it. And then they're also adding these leaderboard filters, where if we go to leaderboard here, we can basically, now filter by hunter. We have this friends thing where you can see of our friends list, like who's pumping. Treadsy's already legend. What the hell? EU boy pumping. And then speaking of rewards, I also wanted to show, like, these are like the seasonal missions that got added with the Warp Tour. So these are going for the whole Season 0. But you can basically unlock these titles through, doing these like missions. And if you're able to complete 15, you're going to get a classic, instant classic Beebo emote, which is pretty cool. And then coming down to this last kind of big section here with progression, this is basically, they're doing some really cool stuff here. So they're adding this battle pass, like very first sort of like battle pass on top of the hunter's journey, which still exists. They've added 5 more levels to the hunter's journey. So if you were already capped on here, you have everything you had before, but you also get, there's going to be 5 new levels. You're going to get W. Well played emote, Shattered Ground Spray, Hunter Unlock, and Skylands Purple glider at the end of it at level 56. But then they also added an entire battle pass for Season 0. So we can see here, ends in 90 days. All right, so the gist here is that in every battle pass, there's 300 of these vibe points total. And if you have the premium, so there's 80 available for free, and then there's 300 available total. So if you get the premium battle pass, which actually costs 300 vibe points, you can unlock 300 vibe points in this pass to basically make your next battle pass free. And so basically what they're saying by going infinite, meaning once you can fully play through a battle pass that's premium, you'll be able to sort of, as long as you continue doing that, you'll be able to forever get enough VP, as long as you don't spend it on other stuff, to unlock the next battle pass for free. Because if I get 300 VP from this battle pass, then the battle pass that comes in Season 1, I'll be able to unlock for free, just through playing right there, right? Now, for completely free to play players like that don't want to spend any money at all, basically anything here that says free is what's available. Anything that has the tag is what's in the battle pass. But there's some pretty cool stuff in here. But basically, you're going to get 80 VP available for free. So if we look across this whole thing, there's going to be 4 of these VP things that are in the free package. So that's going to give us 80 total. So that basically means if we do that over the course of, I wish it was 100, because if it was 100, that would mean over the course of 3 seasons, completely for free, we could accumulate enough Vive points to buy the next Battle Pass. So by season 3, we could buy that Battle Pass without having spent any money in game, just using the Vive points for free that we've gotten from the previous 3 Battle Passes. And then once we've done that, once we finally have unlocked a Battle Pass, then we can go infinite, meaning we can use the 300 Vive points from this Battle Pass to buy the next Battle Pass and use those Vive points to buy the next Battle Pass. So there basically is a pathway now for a completely free-to-play player spending absolutely no money to get permanent, get infinite access to future Battle Passes. However, it's going to require them missing the content of like these first 3 Battle Passes, because you're going to basically have to play through like 3 to 4 Battle Passes for free before you're going to have enough premium currency to unlock the full Battle Pass, which is what's going to give you access to all the VP currency, which is going to be like what lets you go infinite, right? So I hope that basically makes sense. I wanted to give you guys like a clear picture here on exactly what's getting added with the Battle Passes, and kind of like what's free. And then the other thing they're mentioning here is that when you're, quote, behind the curve on Battle Pass progression, i.e. like if the average player is at tier 14 and you're still at, tier 5 because you haven't had a chance to play yet, you're going to get an XP buff on the Battle Pass for that time that you're kind of behind the average player's progression. And then they're just saying that they add progression trackers in the lobby, so we can see Battle Pass is here, Hunter's Journey is here, Hunter Mastery is here. So this is like a quick path to these different progression things. And then we also have the seasonal stuff we talked about just before this here. These are like the seasonal missions with the Beebo emote. So you can kind of get a quick view of all your progression right here. Season missions, season Battle Pass, continuous Hunter Journey, and continuous Hunter Mastery. All right, now wrapping it up with the final couple things here, we have some changes to chat. So not everyone likes to be on voice, and part of accommodating that needs a better chat system. So they're cleaning things up. Messages from group party will now always play a unique sound when messages sent or received. Sound should be louder. Pings send contextual messages to chat, and a variety of system messages like day-night cycle and such have been removed to reduce spamminess in the chat. And then if we look at other bug fixes / quality of life, they fixed a bug that allowed dropped items to be duped by other players. Thanks to this person. I wish I knew how to say that for discovering this. Portuguese VO is now available. Japanese text is now available. You can now emote in the pregame lobby to the entire lobby. That should be interesting. Practice mode now has exotic powers and souls. That's a cool addition. So once they once they fix the evolving equipment little bug that's happening in practice tool, we should have more access in there to like test stuff. Social requests, so like invites to request and join, can now be viewed from end of game screen or while fully spectating. So it was like kind of annoying. You had to go all the way back out to this like home screen after a game to like see if you got a friend request or to like run it back or anything like that. Now you should be able to like see that like instantly, like while you're spectating, which will be nice. You can now level up your equipment with Alt 1 through 4. And you can adjust these binds in the settings as well, but basically adding a way not only to auto level your abilities, but now also level your equipment with your shards with Alt, and then also Azerty keybinds have been added. So boom, that is the patch notes for Season 0, January 8th, 2025, the begin of our very first season, our very first arc, our very first brand new Hunter since the game has kind of gone into the open beta launch here with our buddy Beebo joining the cast. So, so some really exciting stuff, some cool changes, and I'm super excited to get some time in on this little buddy and see what we can do with him. So keep an eye out for a beginner's guide coming on this guy at some point in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to take care of yourself and keep vibing. Catch you next one. Peace.